Good evening. Today is Thursday, March the 7th, 2020. I now call this Fairfield City School District Board of Education work session meeting to order. And Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Begley?
Here.
Mr. Birding?
Present.
Here.
Mrs. Gundrum?
Here.
Mrs. O'Neill?
Here.
Mrs. Shorter?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Begley, will you join us or lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
One
One
nation,
under
under God,
Indivisible.
indivisible,
with
with
liberty,
liberty
justice,
and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Begley. First item on our agenda is presentations and resolutions. I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Birdie, members of the board, we do have two presentations scheduled this evening. Our first presentation is an EL program overview. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mandy Olive.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, Mr. Birding, members of the board. I am happy to be with you tonight to give you a brief overview of the English Language Learner Program in Fairfield City School District. Before I get into the presentation, I do just want to thank Dawn Warren Hildreth. She actually put this together for me, provided the information, and she does a great job of overseeing our program, and so she was extremely helpful in what I'm about to share with you tonight, or I'm putting together what I'm sharing with you tonight. So, all right, so as you know, just a little background of our EL student population here. We have more than 11% of our student population is comprised of English language learners. So that's about 1,200 students in our district, and of course Fairfield has seen significant growth over the last 10 years. We've had about 150% growth in our EL population. So the top 5 languages represented among this population are Spanish speakers, Nepali speakers, French, Twi, which is a language spoken mostly in Ghana, and then Chinese, and the majority of those speakers speak Mandarin. So as a result of the growth that we've seen, we have added staff and support in order to support our EL learners. So there's at least one EL teacher in each building of the district. And then we also have tutors who support these students on a daily basis. So we have 22 secondary tutors for our ELs and 14 elementary tutors. So these teachers and staff members, of course, work hard on a daily basis to provide support in the classroom for our students. But they are also there to support our students by providing them with special opportunities throughout the year that are designed specifically for EL students in the region. So a good example of this from this year was the Engineering Day at Cincinnati State, where we had representation from our EL groups, and you can see Supriya there, who is the teacher who took the students on that trip. And then, probably some of the biggest events in the fall are our EL Culture Nights, and where we celebrate all of the cultures of the students that we have in Fairfield. And so these take place at each one of the elementary schools, and there's food, games, families come, share their traditions, celebrate their culture. And there was record attendance at all of these events this year. So she put a couple of slides in here because there was just too many to capture on one slide. So this presentation actually was supposed to be taking place in conjunction with Hamilton County ESC. You might remember from earlier in the school year, I presented to the board that we were going to do an EL needs assessment starting in January. So we did start that process in January in conjunction with the Hamilton County ESC. And things were going along very well. And then, of course, we were shut down. And so as a result of that, there are still things that we are working on in terms of data collection, reviewing processes and practices. There are some things we think we can finish this year, like we have a teacher survey that will go out sometime in May that Hamilton County, Connie Reyes-Rao from Hamilton County and Don Warren Hildreth worked on together, so we'll send that out to our teachers. But in terms of, being able to come here, in May or June and present the entire overview to you, we won't be able to do that. But I am hoping, that finish this sometime in the fall. And so you'll see myself and Connie Reyes-Rao and Don Hildreth here, sharing a complete overview of what the EL needs assessment, what information that to us, and then we'll also have a plan of how we can move forward to make sure we continue to support all of the needs of our EL learners. So it's on hold for now, but as soon as we are back together, we will get going on that again, and hopefully we'll all be together in the fall and we can, give you the full presentation. So, and then finally, another thing that was affected by the shutdown, we were hoping to highlight our scholarship winner. Each year, we have an EL student who who's awarded a scholarship, and the committee actually just got those names this week, and they don't have a recipient finalized, and so I don't have that to report to you either. But please know it's in process, and I am confident that whichever young man or young woman earns that scholarship, they will be very deserving, and I know that Gina will be celebrating them on all of our other outlets. So with that, if you don't have any questions, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Smith.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's a lot of great information. And I think it's just another example of the way that Fairfield City School District meets the needs of every kid that walks in the door, no matter where they come from or where they're going. While they're here in our buildings, we provide a free quality education to them. So thank you very much for that information. Okay, the next item is the nutritional standards. Mr. Smith?
Yes, our next presentation, as you said, is about nutritional standards. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Jeff Madden and Ron McWhorter.
Make sure I can share my screen with everybody here. Did the PowerPoint show up? Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Smith and Mr. Birdie, members of the board. I've got Ron here today. Ron serves as the food and nutrition field specialist for the district. He's been in that role for 2 years. I will quickly turn things over to him because he's the expert when it comes to a lot of this in this presentation. just to highlight some key areas that we plan to cover. And they're there on the second slide. One is going to be the menu development. Just want to walk the board and the community through how we develop our school menus and what's required with that. There are some other regulations that we're going to touch on as well that involves food and the sale of food. And annually, we usually come to the board and talk about lunch prices. So we're going to discuss lunch prices as well. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ron, who's going to talk about breakfast and what makes up a breakfast in Fairfield.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mr. Madden. Good evening, board. Thanks for some time tonight to go over our lunch program. Start off with breakfast. We do offer versus serve. What does that mean? I'm sure you say, well, we serve our students breakfast every morning. Well, we do, but we use our offer plan from the USDA. So basically what that means, breakfast, you have four meal components. You've got fruit, vegetable, and juice is one component. The second component is your whole grains. Your third component is your protein. And then your fourth component is milk. So if we use serve, we would put all four components on a tray, hand it to a student, and send them out to the cafeteria to either eat everything or something they did not like, they may throw away. So what we do is we use offer. We offer each student those four components. So that gives a student an option if they, for some reason, don't like milk. They don't have to take a milk. They have to take 3 out of the 4 components that are offered. And one of those components has to be a half cup of fruit or vegetable to make a reimbursable meal. So that's why we do the offer versus serve. It saves down on waste. Also saves the district money by not having our students throw away something that they would not want to pick and eat. Jeff, can you go to the lunch screen? So lunch is the same way. It's the offer versus serve. The difference with the lunch is we offer 5 components: grains, meat alternate, milk, fruits, and vegetable. So a student has to pick at least 3 of those 5 components. Hopefully they take all 5, but they have to choose at least 3. And one of those 3 components, again, has to be a half cup of fruits or vegetables to make it a reimbursable school meal. You go to the next one, Jeff.
Yep, freshman menu.
The freshman menu, a couple items that I wanted to highlight. We added a few new items last year to the freshman menu. 2 of the items were, I thought they would be extremely well received lunches. They were more well received than I imagined. The grilled cheese that we serve on Orange Week on Friday with the tomato soup, the students came into the door there for the lunch of the day, and the line went past. If you're familiar with the freshman building, the line went all the way past the gymnasium doors. It was on that day and our fettuccine Alfredo. There were times that I thought the students were going to not have enough time to get through the line. They were literally waiting that long to get these 2 lunches. So the way we come up with new items, we try to do a student testing, get feedback from the students, see how they accept it. If the test goes well, then we'll try it on the menu. Most items stick, some items don't. We took a Salisbury steak item off the coming school year menu from the elementaries just because today's kids don't really know what a Salisbury steak is. So we took that off. It wasn't a high-performing item. But these 2 items, if you're looking for a comfort meal or a comfort lunch one day, stop by and have the grilled cheese and tomato soup of the freshman. I know you won't be disappointed in it. And 2 new items that we added this coming school year for the freshmen is the sweet Thai chicken with yakisoba noodles. It's a Japanese noodle. And we've also added a cavatappi 3-cheese creamy mac and cheese, which is made from a local manufacturer here, JTM, out in Harrison. So we've really increased our participation, which we'll talk here in a little bit, by introducing new menu items at all the 3 levels of our school district. So one way that we make sure that we are in compliance, for every menu that we look at, I have to run a weekly certification worksheet that shows that we're meeting all of our components that are required. So we meet on this particular worksheet here, we're meeting all of our components. You will see where it says grain maximum, we're over. In January of 2014, USDA put a permanent waiver in that said you could be over on your proteins and grains. And the reason that was, there were school districts out there that could not serve a healthy chicken salad because adding chicken to the salad would put them 1 ounce of grain over for their weekly requirements. So the USDA's relaxed that rule. As long as you meet the minimum meat alternate and grain requirements, you are in compliance no matter what your maximum meat alternate or grain is. So this shows that we're all in compliance with all of our components. And one of the hardest things that when it comes to menu development is you look in the vegetables there. We have dark green, red, orange, beans and peas, starchy, and others. So that's probably the most difficult part of menu planning, is making sure that you're meeting the requirements of the vegetable subgroups. So obviously here, this is an elementary lunch. So this week 3/9 of 20, that's just the week that I did it in the program. But this menu, I think this is probably orange week. So this shows that we're in compliance on our weekly certification worksheet. So the other nutritional compliance that we need to look at on every menu is our calories, saturated fat, and sodium. So this is either a freshman or high school menu. So the weekly target of calories has to be between 750 and 850. This menu averages 788 calories, so we are 100% on our target. On our saturated fat, the weekly target has to be minus or less than 10% of calories. We are currently at 8.84%, so we're in compliance there. And on the sodium, cannot be over 1,420 milligrams of sodium. This menu average comes in at 1,408. So all 3 of these components, we are in within our target range of compliance. And we have to do that for every weekly menu that we have. So it's 20, including Sacred Heart, that's 20 menus that we have that type of sheet for. So another thing that we have to look at as far as compliance is our Smart Snack standards. What is Smart Snacks? Smart Snacks is the standards for food and beverages that are sold outside of the reimbursable lunch program. So what does that mean? That means any snack that we serve in our snack room at the high school, any type of food that would be served at, say, a bookstore. If the chess club wants to do a fundraiser and sell donuts in the morning, those donuts have to meet certain nutrient requirements. So like on snacks, calories would be 200 calories or less. The sodium, 200 milligrams or less. There's a requirement for total fat, no more than 35% of calories could be from your total fat. Saturated fat, 10% of calories, and no trans fat, and then sugar has to be 35% by weight. Now, what makes this kind of interesting? A Smart Snack standard is sold, any competitive foods sold during the school day. And the USDA defines a school day as midnight to 30 minutes past the last bell. So anyone that wants to sell food that's not part of the reimbursable lunch program between those hours has to make sure that the product is compliant with the Smart Snack standards. And that goes along for beverages also. So you can see here in beverages for milk, juice, 8 ounce, no more than 8 ounces for elementary schools, no more than 12 ounces for middle and high schools. And then you can get down to the low and no calorie beverages. That's high school only. So an example of that, we could serve a Coke Zero or Pepsi Zero and be in compliance with the Smart Snack beverages. Could we sell regular Coke? No, it would not fall within the regulations of Smart Snacks. So how do we find out if you come and bring an item to me and you say, Ron, we want to sell this, is it Smart Snack compliant? How do we find out? Well, we go to the Smart Snack calculator. So for this example, what I used was our goldfish that we use out in the schools. So the first thing I would do is say, my product is what? My product for this presentation was a snack. I go to the next screen, it says, what is my first ingredient? I put in whole grain. Then I put in the nutrition facts from the label, and I hit enter, and it told me that our product is compliant. So if someone comes to me and says, we like to sell this donut before school for a fundraiser, and they have a nutritional fact sheet for it, I'll be more than happy to work with them, plug it into the Smart Snack calculator, and if that product's compliant, they're more than welcome to sell it. If it's not compliant, then I could work with them to find something that would help them to be within the regulations and also help them for any of their fundraisers that they want to put on during the school day. Do you have all the
Thanks, Ron. And as Ron had mentioned, he's done a great job in the past 2 years of going out to sites, testing things. If you follow our Facebook and Gina, she's done a great job tweeting what Ron has done in our cafeterias and working with students. And we have seen participation increase in terms of the number of school lunches and school breakfasts that we have served. And there's just a quick bar graph. We want to continue to see it grow. And that's the type of work that Ron has been able to help and to help monitor in the 2 years that he's been in this position. And, one of the things you may ask, well, why do we have to cover nutritional standards? One of the reasons why we brought this to the board and discussed it, it's really a requirement to periodically update the board on the nutritional standards. And you may also sometimes get questions in the community, well, why don't you serve this? Or why don't you do this? Or why can't we sell this? A lot of the reasons why we don't do this and can't do that is because everything we do is regulated. The worksheets that he showed, those are compliance pieces that are established by the National School Lunch Program. So we actually have people from the state that come in every 3 years. They walk our cafeterias, they check our products, they walk into our closets, they look at what we're selling, and they ensure compliance on all these types of things. So it is highly regulated as an entity. Some good news, I think, to share is that the lunch prices will continue not to increase. They have been the same. I think this will be year 3. And the government has relaxed a little bit with this. There used to be a calculator that you had to plug in what our lunch price is, and then you had to look at what the government reimburses you for a free lunch, and you had to bridge the gap. You had to be charging what you got reimbursed. And they have relaxed that, and they've said basically if you have a positive school lunch fund, then you do not have to increase your lunch prices. And we have a positive fund, and there is no need to increase our lunch prices. And just as a side note, we do serve Sacred Heart. So sometimes people don't know that or they're not aware of that. We do serve their lunch for them. With that, if you have any questions, feel free to fire away, particularly more towards Ron than me, but I'll answer anything you have as well.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I had a question. So it looks like if these numbers, if I'm reading this right, 800,000 lunches served? Is that right? On an annual basis?
That was our projection. We were on pace to serve 800,000 lunches this school year before school was shut down.
Okay. So then obviously everyone has a scheduled lunchtime. How logistically are we serving over a quarter that many, projected of course, but apparently, how are we serving that many breakfast meals? So is that being done? My question is, I guess, is that the students come off the bus or into the building, and between that and first bell, they're able to eat breakfast?
Yeah, it's my understanding.
Breakfast.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, that's exactly right. There is some time, and I will say breakfast is often a challenge in terms of the amount of time that they have to eat breakfast. But that's right. They'll get off the bus, and they usually have about a 10-minute window, 10 to 15-minute window at most, to be able to eat lunch. And there's flexibility, especially the younger the student. Most of our elementary schools work with our kids to make sure that they have some time. But I wish there was more time in the day for that. But that's when they eat it, right off the bus, and 10 or 15-minute window of time to eat the breakfast. And I think if you look, just to let you know too, in terms of breakfast, if you could say there's a concern because of the number of lunches that we serve compared to the number of breakfasts. That is typical in lunch programs that you see in every school district. So you always see breakfast as a lower percentage of students that are being served. So we're not off kilter there when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I think, just so I'm not misunderstood, I think that's a remarkably high number. I think, again, there's a time frame, there's a specific set lunch period, and yet we're able to serve over a quarter, almost a third as many breakfast meals. So I think that's outstanding.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
I just have one question. So obviously that was a big jump from 2018 to what we would be this year. Have we run into any issues getting kids through the line fast enough, or obviously like the staffing hasn't really changed? Have we been able to accommodate that large of an increase without any big hiccups?
I don't want to make those numbers look like they're inflated, because those are real numbers. But if you start to divide that out by the number of days and number of students that we serve, the impact per building is not massive. It may be only 2 or 3%, depending on the building. So when you have an aggregate all together, it looks, obviously you can see the jump. It's a larger number per day. But if you spread it out, 10 buildings, 10,000 students, the perspective looks a little bit different.
Makes sense.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Great job.
Yeah, amazing job. It is quite remarkable, like Mr. Begley said, that we serve that many breakfasts in the morning. So, and of course, Mr. Madden, I believe with Sacred Heart, do we prepare the food and transport it over to Sacred Heart, or do we prepare it at Sacred Heart?
We prepare it at West and we transport it to Sacred Heart.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Madden. Thank you, Mr. McWhorter.
Thank you.
Thank you.